Hello everyone, my name is Igor Alexandre Jakuboski. I hope you are having a great day and thanks for your participation. Thanks as well to the organization team that allowed me to do this presentation. It's a pleasure for me, it's an honor for me to talk about how we can get more value from SAP tools to create a complete roadmap to S4HANA. Okay. So let's start talking about uh, uh, what we'll be covering. Today we'll be covering some tools, how we can start, and some best practices and recommendations based on my previous engagements. So I'm working at SAP as Enterprise Architect, and I hope I can share some useful recommendation for you in your engagements. Okay. And it's very important to remember we are living in challenging times, so please consider donations for this ONG, Desejando Bem. There are people which need your support, so please remember that. Regarding the agenda, we'll be considering the importance to have a detailed transition roadmap, and we'll be discussing some SAP tools that could support us to develop this roadmap. And as well, I'd like to share some personal recommendations, again, based on my previous engagements, previous customers that I have supported before. So regarding the roadmap, why is this so important? So from the vision to execution, sometimes there are some challenges. In this example, we can see a prototype for a flying car that was developed in 1973. And after 2 minutes flying, it was involved in an accident. Unfortunately, two people died. And the final report said it was caused by a poor design and poorly made workarounds. So just a parallel here, sometimes in our corporative uh, projects, in IT projects, it happens something similar to that. We have a vision, but when we're trying to execute this vision, we have challenges. Sometimes the final deliverable is not the same as we have before as a vision. So that's why it's important to have an architecture approach with enterprise architecture, solution architecture, technical architecture, uh, just to assure we are covering all the aspects to prepare a good roadmap. Okay. And we know SAP provides some tools for this kind of roadmap. Those are the main uh, common tools probably you have heard before. So SAP Transformation Navigator, BSR 2.0, Readiness Check, Pathfinder. Those tools, additional tools, consider are uh, uh, doing an architecture engagement approach. I'm using just an example, the TOGAF, as I'm certifying TOGAF. For me, it's a clear parallel between those tools and what we should do during a TOGAF ADM cycle, for example. I'm not telling those tools are developed to specific TOGAF engagements, but it could be available support for discussions we have. For example, SAP white papers could be a good introduction point when we are when we are discussing architecture vision. So, what is the vision that I want for my company? So, SAP has a lot of experience in more than 23 industries. So, we know there are good scenarios that could be evaluated in each company based in the SAP experience, in the SAP experience trends recommendation. Usually, you can find in the white papers. There are some additional tools like Business Value Advisor that could be important for to creating metrics reference architectures when you are discussing, for example, business architecture, or when you are discussing information systems, data domains, application technology domains. There are different tools that could support us. And also when we are creating the roadmaps, when we are identifying opportunity solutions, we know it's important to be sure about the availability of solutions that could be considered in our roadmap. The link to find these tools is in this slide, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about each one of these tools with some examples, if you agree, okay? So let's start with the white papers. We have white papers specifically, for example, here for integration or for specific industries like insurance, banking, life science, and we have much more industries that could be find specific white papers. You will be finding trends, best practices, recommendations, what my competitors are doing in other countries, traditional scenarios. So, for example, here we have a procurement that could be in a new world scenario, more collaborative. So the vendor, the manufacturer could be more integrated in this new world scenario for procurement. And if they are, what could be the top value drivers that could be considered? So it's a good intelligence, advanced analytics, blockchain, how these technologies start making sense for my business. So there are some examples here that we could consider with our customers or in our companies. And also maturity frameworks that could be important examples allowing companies to evaluate where they are and what could be the next steps to consider. So those are some points that you can find the white papers. It's a very important tool to initiate the discussion regarding the architecture vision. Another tool, the SAP Business Value Advisor. So here you can find, uh, identify opportunities where the S/4HANA could improve your company's bottom line, demonstrating areas of improvement, quantifiable results, customer case. So for example, here we have an example, the increase of an NPS KPI in 8 months in this customer. So we can have can look for more details about this case and also understand how SAP could support this case, what solutions are available, which capabilities we could consider. So it's a good example as well. We have different industries that you can look for KPIs, and as well we have different LOBs to consider. So as again, it's a good starting point now for a business architecture discussion, defining metrics and points that should be considered, reference architectures, something like that. Another report, for me personally, one of the most important reports that we have to execute is the business scenario recommendation. Okay, so it will provide valuable information based in the current ERP system usage. Okay, so you can run this report in your ERP and you'll be highlighting specific areas of change or improvement, identifying where your organization can realize the greatest benefits from a transition to S/4HANA. So it's a very important report. We'll be talking with more detail about this report in this presentation, but here we have the links how can we start the execution, and also there is a sample report available that I encourage you to check. It's a good point to consider when we are start discussing the three domains of architecture like business, technology, data. So it's important to identify the opportunities and check the gaps that we can consider when we are creating a roadmap. Another important tool, we'll be also talking with more details about this tool in this presentation, SAP Transformation Navigator. So which capabilities and which products SAP recommends for each company. So it's a common question, for example, for me, should I continue with business objects? Should I keep my efforts in BW, or should I go to Lumira, to SAP Analytics Cloud? And we know this kind of question is very common, not only for analytics, but for many scenarios, many LOBs. So SAP Transformation Navigator will bring you an updated recommendation regarding products, capabilities, integration, and here we have the links, and basically we'll be talking with more details about the solution. It's a free self-service tool available for customers and partners. So again, I encourage you to check this tool if you are considering an innovation, modernization engagement, or a migration to S/4HANA. Another tool, SAP Readiness Check, it's a program that you can run in your solution management or directly in your ERP system. And you're providing information regarding is your landscape ready for migration, so custom code analysis, sizing, Fiori recommendations, add-ons, business functions that are running in compatibility mode or not in S/4HANA, BW integration. So all this kind of information is pretty important for us when we are defining the roadmap. So again, it's a tool that I really recommend you consider running in your environment. Okay. And last, no, not last yet, we have one more after that, the Pathfinder. It's a different from business scenario recommendation because it's a tool that you can use to understand innovation opportunities not only for S/4HANA, but if you are looking for innovation opportunities in your ERP version, ECC version, or if you already have implemented S/4HANA and are looking for opportunities to improve for improvement, not only in business but as well in technology, it's an important tool, and the link to access this tool is in this presentation as well. And now, last but not least, the roadmap. So it's a page that you can use to understand the availability of new solutions. So it will provide a guided look into the future of S/4HANA and highlight areas relevant to your business. So we can give examples here. In Data Warehouse, we have the availability of the integration between BW and Data Warehouse Cloud, or for example, for the fiscal area, advanced compliance reporting, when you have new features. So it's important to understand if you are looking for a new implementation, it should be a custom project or there are some native solutions. When the native solutions will be available, it's important to consider this when you are doing a roadmap. And now I'd like to talk with more details about two tools that we discussed and also provide some additional recommendations. If you have questions, please add the questions in the chat and I will be responding at the end of this presentation. Or if you prefer, you can send the question direct to me by email. It will be a pleasure to answer if I'm able to do that. Okay. So let's start with the BSR, the Business Scenario Recommendation. So this report will bring recommendations based, again, in the system usage, current data for each LOB, so finance, procurement, sales, and you can have benchmarks, you can have impact analysis, actions recommended, Fiori recommendations, and mainly you can understand the value of the S/4HANA to solve this kind of issues or KPIs that we'll be finding in the report. So let's give an example how we can read this kind of report. So report will bring you the value drivers, so increase sales force efficiency, and will bring you the KPIs. So let's give an example, missing fields, incomplete orders. And we'll compare it with the industry benchmarking and provide you a view about how good or how bad is your company regarding this KPI. Then we'll provide you recommendations regarding which solutions could be considered. And if you already have these solutions implemented, how is the usage, current usage of the solution. So in this example, advanced ATP could be better used to solve some of the issues that we can find in this slide. So this is a kind of way we could read this report Obviously, there are a lot of KPIs, additional KPIs that could be considered not only for finance, but for different LOBs. And what kind of value, what kind of story we can have with this report? So let's give an example. If you, like a CEO, want to achieve better an optimization in the finance process and liquidity. So the value drivers to support the CEO could be reduce the financial closing time and the DSO. And to support these value drivers, the report identifies some points that could be considered, like for example, overdoing open finance AR API items, or for DSO items overdue for invoicing. So report will highlight you the main impacts for to achieve these KPIs success, and we'll compare the results with the benchmarks. And the most important in this case, how it could be supported by SAP with S4HANA capabilities, and sometimes with additional solutions that could be considered. So here we can link the business with the applications that could be considered. So it's a very important insight that we can have in this kind of report, BSR 2.0. That's why I really recommend you consider running this report in your system if you are considering a migration to S4HANA. Another report here that I'd like to talk about is SAP Transformation Navigator. So it will basically take your current product map from SAP, your current products that you use, and will recommend you a future scenario, or sometimes expanding the capabilities, or basically it could be just recommendations based on the current systems you have, and will provide you output guides that will support the business discussion, the technical discussion, and the transformation guide to create the roadmap. So I'll be showing you some screens, something about how we can run this kind of report. Basically, if you have an S user, you can go to the link. The link is in this presentation, and open the SAP Transformation Navigator, okay, and create a new product map. There are three ways to create this product map. You can create, for example, just a reference product map. Let's give you an example. You are working a project for a life science company, and you would like to have a reference architecture from SAP. So you can create a reference product map for life science. It's a kind of example. Another way is if you have the data from your systems in your SOLMAN solution manager, you can look for this data from early watch reports, and bring all this users data to get the recommendations, or you can start from scratch, create a new product map. Let's give an example. I'm starting an analytics initiative in my company. I'd like to understand the value of the SAP solutions for this initiative. It could be a new project, a new product map from scratch, okay? But most part of the customers that have an ERP go to the first option, which is based on the customer profile, based in the early watch data. So once you have this kind of data, we'll be connecting and selecting the systems that you want to analyze, and the product map will be loaded with the current systems and the recommended systems. Sometimes when you have this kind of view, you have to take some decisions. So for example, my recommended scenario for each product will be on-premise, cloud. I will answer this later. So it's a kind of question that you have sometimes to answer. And based on the questions that will be answered, you have different response from the tool in this case, which solutions could be available for an on-premise implementation with S4HANA, for example, okay? Sometimes you have to add a new capability or a new product or start from scratch. So let's give you an example. I'm start analyzing my ERP, but I also like to add some capability, for example, regarding analytics or planning or consolidation. So I can select different capabilities. Personally, I use these capabilities as well when I'm trying to create like a script for an assessment or to identify gaps in a process. These kind of capabilities are really useful, so it's a recommendation as well. And once you select the capabilities, you'll be getting the recommended products for these capabilities and can have a consolidated view of these capabilities. Uh, for each solution recommended, you can have which capabilities the solution are supporting and the value of these capabilities of the solution, the business driver, the license, information regarding integration, services that could be available. Let's give you an example, model company or quick wins that could be considered. That's why it's an important tool when you are creating the roadmaps. And also you can start creating like a business case. So starting by selecting which value drivers are addressed by which capabilities, which business process you can have in the description of this business process, and then you can start doing filling like a questionnaire to identify the value and start creating a business case evaluation. So it's an important uh, guidance that we can have in this kind of tool. And as also it can prioritize the implementations. This will be important when you are start doing as well the roadmap. At the end of the execution, sometimes this kind of execution takes like 1 week, depending on the customer. In my scenario, because there are a lot of discussions regarding which process will be covered, external systems that should be replaced or not. So I would recommend you consider some days in your week or 1 week at least when you're running this kind of reporting in your company or in your customer. And the outputs will be like I previously mentioned, the technical guide, the uh, business guide, and the transformation guide. And you can share this product map or inside your company with your colleagues or with SAP, for example, asking for additional information. Personally, the information that I most use in these outputs, although the outputs provides a lot of valuable information, I usually takes the business capability map, the heat map, which is providing how many capabilities and value drivers we could have for each solution that is in the product map. Implementation recommendations, again, like model company or, for example, package for embedded analytics for S4HANA. So those kind of recommendations. And as well, I brought some examples to just to talk quickly about so we can show the current usage of the ERP or the current system. So how many processes this is covering, how many users the ERP are supporting, information regarding the sizing, the growthness of the database, information regarding the custom code. So what is the impact of the custom code in my system, in the performance of my business process? Is this something that should be considered if, for example, I'm thinking about a new implementation or just a conversion from my current system? It could be an important point to consider. As well, with relevant nodes could be considered when we are starting migration, this custom code to S4HANA. We could also include the capabilities view and like an analysis regarding which capabilities are better, are more enhanced by S4HANA, for example, and the transition heat map that I mentioned previously. The types and services that could be considered, and when we are in the opportunities solution of the architecture and opportunity analysis phase of the architecture. So we are looking for opportunities, for example, for quick wins, and this kind of information could be relevant. Also, reference architecture and the recommended solutions based on the selection in the product map. And based on all this information, you can start doing like creating a transformation roadmap or an implementation roadmap, and including taking the sizing, which readiness checks provides, for example, for implementation in S4HANA, and finally the technology architecture for the target scenario. So those are some of the outputs that I usually consider when I'm doing this kind of engagement, and those are some of my recommendations. So like the key takeaways that we could consider, it's SAP provides a lot of valuable tools that could support us in when we are creating a roadmap to S/4HANA, a migration to S/4HANA. Those tools are free of charge for SAP customers under maintenance, and it could be really valuable if you have to see where are the key benefits for your company with S/4HANA, or to start creating a roadmap or business case. So those are the points. Let me see if we have questions in the chat. One moment, please. I reserved some time here to take the questions. Questions, please, you can send me by email. Here, my contact. And thanks a lot for participation. Today we have another session in Portuguese for this point, for this subject, and all of you are invited as well to participate. Thank you very much. Bye.